I remember one day I was telling the Lord that I can imagine how you felt telling Peter, "Do you love me?" He said, "Yes." He said, "Feed my sheep." And you told him 3 times. And even Peter was like, "Lord, you know I love you." And I kind of get it because this sheep is steady testing shepherd's patience. And I'm like, hi guys, welcome to another episode on my channel. I've been running a series, Diaries of a Pastor's Wife or Diaries of Pison, whichever one. I'm not so sure what I'm using at this point. If you can see a thumbnail with a specific title, thank the Lord for my life. But anyway, this is a brand new series. This is the second episode in the series, and I'm so grateful that you are here today. So after today's video, I got a topic request from MJ, and she wanted me to talk about the difference between being a pastor's wife and when I was engaged to my husband, who is a pastor. So he's been a pastor since we started dating, and there is a world of difference. I mean, not harsh differences, but there are certainly differences between both sides. And if you want to know, just stick around to the video. So I'll get right into it. The first major difference is I am now his wife. In your head, you're like, obviously, but it's very different. So when we were dating, he would have programs, Vivify would have programs, and I will come around. And I mean, Vivify folk have always been nice to me. So when I come around, they're always nice and all of that. So it was really cool. But the expectations were very different, right? I wasn't expected to be at every event, right? It was nice. If I didn't come, I'm like, oh, where's Pastor Chisom? Because I was a pastor then as well. Like, oh, where's Pastor Chisom? Oh, she didn't come today. Oh, yeah. Or it was different, right? I was not in Vivify at the time. I was in Circle Church, but I was dating someone else outside Circle Church. So like it was understandable if like events between my church at the time and Vivify clashed, and I was in my church, so it was understandable. So it was very different. But now Vivify is my PPA, so there is no Pastor Jason was not around. I'm not a guest here. This is my primary point of assignment, so I always have to be in church. And sometimes it can be daunting, especially in seasons where a lot is going on, like so many things are happening at the same time. I remember November last year was very challenging for me physically, emotionally, in my health. Like there were just a lot of moving parts at the same time, and I just needed a break. But on responsibility, I had to show up in church every Sunday. I had to be at programs, and I'm grateful for when I did decide to take a break. I had spoken to my husband, okay, I think I need a break. I need a breather. I need to go on a retreat. So I went to a retreat for a couple of days, and it was quite a distance from church. Like it was really far, and I wasn't around for a midweek service, but I streamed online that day. It was very different because I had to talk to my husband, who was also, or who is also rather, my lead pastor, and be like, oh, Pastor Babe, please, I may not be able to make Thursday service physically, right? I could do this as well when we're dating, but the expectations are just very different right now. So that was one example. I'm now his wife. Another way that plays out is when we're dating, we had times where we would see each other, right? We would maybe see during the day, and during the day we've already planned, okay, this is the time we're spending together. So there was a different approach we took to spending time together, right? We spent time mostly outside or in open spaces, or if I was at his place, his mom was usually around, or his dad or his cousin. There was usually company with us. So I found that in that time it was easier to to spend time without distractions. Let me put it that way. There were distractions. There were times that an urgent call would come in or something along those lines would happen. But now, as his wife, it takes more intentionality to spend time together because we are now both pastors in church. I was just one of my friends around the house that for weeks we've not been home alone. Like we've had to host someone, or the other, and it's part of our package. It's part of the package of our lives, and we're grateful to God that we get to do it. But it's very dynamic from when we were dating. Like, it takes more intentionality in this phase of our lives to spend time together, because I used to see memes of how pastors' wives, people are always calling the pastor. People are always calling the pastor. Now, it's funnier when you both are pastors and people are always calling the both of you. And there are seasons where the calls are not as intense, but there are seasons where it's like when it rains, it pours. Everybody has problem at the same time. So I have had to learn that this is part of the deal that I signed up for, and we both try to be intentional about spending time together, even though we are married. Because small C finish can enter. Pata pata, you people share the same house, share the same room, and you keep saying, okay, we'll talk later, and then later may never come because one issue or the other would pop up and you have to resolve it. But what keeps me going is that, first and foremost, this is service to the Lord. And the Lord will not give me anything I cannot handle. So He does give me the grace per time to handle dynamic situations like this. And I'm grateful for the kind of husband I have. He listens to me if I feel like we've not been spending time together, and I tell him, he makes extra effort to spend that time with me, and it's super interesting. And there are some things I want to talk about, but I'll postpone it to another video. Things that your pastor's wife is probably not telling you that she wants to tell you, but I will tell you on her behalf. Anyway, another video, I'll talk about it. Another difference is let's just put it like this. I think I'm trying to separate the videos I'm going to talk about it on, because they are very onion-like. They are very layered, right? But I'm thinking, to be honest, I love this dichotomy, right? Between being a pastor and a pastor's wife. In fact, let me just talk about it a little. I wanted to separate the videos, but I'll just talk about it a little in this video. My PA and my team may just be giving me side eye because we've agreed to separate the videos, but let's just go ahead. Another difference is, when I was dating my husband, I was a pastor, but I was not a pastor's wife. Of course, I was learning intentionally, what does it look like to date a pastor's wife? And I read books about it, like I was very big on it and all of that. But it's very interesting. In fact, don't worry, I've decided I'm going to separate this video because I don't want to elongate this particular one. So let me just tell you something else that is different. Hospitality looks different as a married person, like being married to a pastor, compared to when we were dating. So when we were dating, people will come over. I never really needed... my husband never really needed to get my permission, or vice versa, on who comes to the house or who stays around in the house and things like that. There was never really that conversation because we didn't have the context of it. We were not married. But now that we are married, it's very different. So it's my house, it's his house. But if I want to have someone over, I would always ask my husband, okay, this person is coming over, they're coming to see me, are you fine with this? Does this work with your time? And he does the same thing. If either of us is not fine with it, we turn down the person, or we make other arrangements. And we love to open our home to our close friends and people around our circle. Unfortunately, we can't open our house to the whole world, but we try to be as accommodating as possible. And God has had to do a number on my heart, because in doing that, in accommodating people, we've been burnt a couple of times where, people just shock you, people behave anyhow. I remember one day I was telling the Lord that, I can imagine how you felt telling Peter, do you love me? He said, yes. He said, feed my sheep. And you told him 3 times. And even Peter was like, Lord, I love you. And I kind of get it, because this sheep be steady testing shepherd's patience. I know. Because I was like, there was one day somebody did something. I said, because I went to go and think about it. I was like, I know, when I was under my pastor before, like I moved to Vifach, I don't think I stressed him like this. In fact, I don't think I stressed him in this direction. I said, why? But then I've learned to love people how God sees us. I've learned to be patient with people. There's something called a pastor's heart, and it's such a real thing. Like being able to be there in people's misbehavior. And you know the funny thing, there are some rules that exist in my marriage. For instance, if you confide something in my husband, he won't tell me, and vice versa. Like, we are not the couple that, oh, we don't have anything to gist, we'll not be gisting everybody's problem and what XYZ told us in confidence. We don't do that. And it's a rule we've had since we started dating, because we want that if people confide in us, they feel safe, right, in what they are confiding. The fact that you know me does not mean you know my husband. Some people don't mind, but it's just a boundary that we have put in place in our relationship and in our church. That's what we want people, even after us, to emulate. So there are times where something affects me, right, and I have to then sieve it. Okay, I know that I am married to my husband. I should be able to tell him everything that is bothering me. But my husband is also my pastor and this person's pastor. So sometimes I have to kind of compartmentalize my life and kind of refer to who I'm talking to per time. For instance, there are some conversations I want to have with my husband, and I'm like, I'm talking to you as your wife, not Pastor Chiso. So hear me in your wife's voice, because their answers are very different. There's sometimes my husband will ask me a question and I'm like, who do you want to listen to? Like, whose answer do you want? Do you want your wife's perspective or Pastor Chisholm's perspective? Because sometimes the answers are very different. For instance, if somebody annoys my husband, I can go all Voltron on you. Like, what? Why? Like, why? Please don't play with my husband. But if it's somebody that he's discipling, the Voltron part is there, but I'm also like, we labor over people fervently. So my answer as Pastor Chisom is very different from the Voltron wife side of me. So it's a switch that I have learned and I'm still learning. Honestly, it takes a lot of patience to learn it. And another one I'll share maybe before I wrap up this video is Sunday mornings and like receiving from my pastor, who's also my husband. There are times where there have been Sundays where we probably had a heated moment or a disagreement, or we're just not on our 100% lovey-dovey game, right? And we're going to church. And many times I've had to bring myself to a point where I'm like, Chisom, you're in church, you're already upset about something that is wrong. If you carry this over to how you receive from your pastor, who is also your husband, you're going to lose twice. And everybody that knows me knows I'm not a fan of losing twice. Not like I'm winning or losing battles in my marriage. Just get context of what I'm saying. Like, it does not make sense that I'm already upset. Then I'll now upset myself further by not being blessed by the service. So I've had to learn to, put my emotions aside and receive from my pastor. Then when we get home, we can iron out whatever issues kind of exist or whatever made me upset at the moment. I've also learned that you don't have to address things when they are hot, because sometimes when you want to address something, let's say my husband does something that I don't like and we're on a drive to church and he's the one preaching that day. That's not a good time to start saying, oh, baby, said this and I don't like it. Because what does that do on his feelings and on his emotions when he's going to teach, right? I'm sitting in front. He's looking at me. Would he be able to look at me well, or would he be avoiding me, making eye contact with me and all those, it's funny. So sometimes, I just have to tell myself, just so if you're the one preaching, you will not appreciate having this kind of conversation. And my husband may be able to compartmentalize this very well, but I've just learned not to treat him in ways that I will not appreciate being treated, right? It can wait. And I found that sometimes, once I just wait till after service, the service has already worked on my heart. So by the time we're talking about it, I'm like, it's not that deep. And we will just, move past it. Anybody that needs to say sorry will say sorry. It's always easier to resolve when I've allowed the Holy Spirit to give room. There was one time I was even so humbled because I had something had happened. I was upset, but I was like, we're in church. I'm not going to let this be a distraction to me. I love my husband, but right now he's also my pastor and I'm going to be blessed by him. And then I just listened through the service. And I realized that in that service, while what I was upset about was valid, I realized that it was aggravated by other things that I was dealing with internally. And the worship session, the prayer sessions in church just helped me decompress. So by the time we were talking in the evening, I was calmer. I was not defensive. I was not attacking my husband in any way in the conversations. And there was something he did that also touched me in that moment. Like before we even went into it, I was already anticipating, okay, how will I bring up this conversation? How will I bring up this thing? How would I say it? And he brought it up. And then he was like, oh, I'm so sorry you felt this way in the morning. And when, you've kind of rehearsed your lines and how you started this project's defense. And then somebody now tells you sorry. And like, okay, now all this anger, what do I do with it? Nothing. So, I am thankful for moments where I give room to the spirit and he lets me work, because there's no way to do this work successfully without yielding to the spirit. You either be frustrated, depressed, not at peace, or all of the above. So yeah, these are some differences between when I was dating my husband as a pastor and now that I'm a pastor's wife and also a pastor. It's very interesting. That was not the point of this video. I've sure mixed everything together. Manage me. Yeah, I've mixed everything together, but I want you to look forward to my next episode. If there's anything specific you want me to talk about on this series, let me know and I'll factor it into my next videos. I love you guys so much. Have a nice one. Bye.